Hey everyone, thanks for making it to the Gamers Addiction Anonymous group meeting. If it's all the same, I would like to share first because a few months ago, I tried to do the unthinkable. A few months ago, I tried to play not one, not three, but 5 different story-rich games all in the same rotation. Now, I don't know why I thought I could do that or what I was feeling in that moment. I just couldn't help myself. Because believe me, at the apex of me trying to retain all the information and game lore of multiple distinct games in my head, like it was as easy as having multiple Google Chrome tabs open, I damn near almost factory reset my wizard body software. And what that means, I hope I never live to understand. But when it comes to playing video games nowadays, or playing multiple games, especially like in this scenario, one of the biggest indirect burdens you take on when trying to enjoy gaming to this extent is obviously the time consumption and how long it takes to actually play all these titles. But I would say another big factor and just adds weight to a game, hopefully in the most fun fashion possible and not in an incorrect way, is just all of the shit you gotta remember to have the best intended experience of just playing that title. And when I say incorrect, I'm using Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival as a worst case scenario measurement. Because video games have grown incredibly complex over time as we reach new heights in all the things that make up this amazing hobby, such as all the new hardware that's out there, the new easier distribution routes of gaming to make it as easy as possible to get in anyone's hands nowadays, the new prices that seem cheap on the surface but are banking on you getting addicted to the game so that you'll spend your last savings on some microtransactions. Game creators are wisely taking advantage of the current timeline that we're on right now, whether it's in good or bad reasoning. But with this new focus in the overall landscape of gaming being on higher end components, or in other words, more expensive shit, the majority of the gaming pool is advertised more towards older people, mainly being adults who have just enough disposable income to pay for all these new exciting things, or really pay off these new exciting things. And just a given to the equation of having an older demographic of gamers is having a higher likely chance of those same said gamers putting a game down before they realistically want to, for whatever reason that may be. Obviously, all ages can put a game down before they're done with it, but coming home from a 10-hour shift just to get absolutely manhandled in a Marvel Rivals game and then proceeding to uninstall that title for an extended period of time is just a different level of defeat. We've all had our moments where we either decided or was forced to put a game down for an extended period. Maybe a new game came out that caught your interest over the current title that you were playing. Maybe the current game that you're playing just got boring as hell, or like I said, made you frustrated to the point where you just decided to leave it until you decide to come back to it. Or obviously all the real world factors that just pull us away from gaming in its entirety when it comes to just existing. The problem is the pain of doing such things is almost a burn as slow as PS4 downloads, because even if you come back to a game after all this time and the love and will to play is undoubtedly there, unfortunately the comprehension of the title and everything that comes with it might still be on vacation and fail to show up to work when you decide to boot up that title after a long hiatus. Because man, if there's anything that you easily forget the most when it comes to picking back up a title, it is easily the control schemes of these games that somehow get as complex as a geometry problem on a controller with only like 10 buttons. Because like gaming, controllers have evolved alongside the actual games themselves, as engineers have found ways to turn the controller from just a plastic accessory that bridges the gap between you and the game world that you're playing on the TV screen to an extension of the video game itself. Because when we think of traditional home console controllers, we've gone from things as simple as one big ass gear stick and literally one button for a controller, all the way to just having magic wands that we can point at the TV that does exactly what the controller is doing itself, up to the age that we're in now, where we have these haptic based motion controllers that are literally one Pokemon evolution step away from turning into Astro Bot himself. So with that, newer games have had so much wiggle room to age their control schemes into a more intuitive experience, and that's not even to mention the counterpart PC platform that has the keyboard and mouse combination that adds a whole new layer of just newfound control schemes. Like the biggest known games of our generation are almost always trying to capitalize on the big open world extensive gameplay loop of the modern industry, since on a grand scale is what we've come to expect from some of these big name developers. And even though with the current formula of first and third person action RPGs feeling pretty much the same in their presence nowadays, coming back to those games and remembering all the intricate controls that make up those titles specifically can be a really hard thing to do, especially with the titles that just go deeper as you further progress in the game, with all those newfound controls that you might get, like all the skill trees and all the modern PlayStation titles, the new abilities in the modern rebooted Zelda games, whatever inexplicable superpower that you eventually get in modern Bethesda titles. Returning to all of that and then feeling dead in the water in an area that you loosely remember but just can't seem to get the full grasp of it at first glance is one of the most eye-opening experiences in gaming that just shows how mentally taxing a lot of games can be when you leave them alone for a while. However, I will say though that if you played a game for a really long time before you step away from that title for however long it is, then it's just more likely that that title has forged its control scheme into a wrinkle deep in the back of your brain. Like, I'm sure that there's millennials upon hearing the Konami code inadvertently will activate their inner gamer sleeper agent like those numbers in Black Ops 1. But then again, time is very humbling, so even though you might retain a lot of the information that you get while playing a title, you still might not be able to retain everything. And this scenario just hits so much harder, especially in other scenarios of just video games. Like, some games might not have these intricate control schemes that are just hard to remember, and instead just have characters or uses in the game that have a specific purpose that you might forget. We see this a lot in the turn-based genre of RPG games where controlling the game is as easy as choosing what you want to do, but choosing exactly what you do is much more efficient when you understand the game and all of its intricate mechanics. You could also say that city builders and strategy games suffer the same fate as well, since everything you put down in those titles have their own usages specifically, which you could have an entire novel guidebook on trying to understand those individual titles. But I would argue that the games that have it worse when it comes to coming back to a game and remembering all the intricate control schemes are the modern fighting titles, because these are the titles that just take full advantage of the controller or keyboard's full potential and create movesets that have the ultimate combos of button mashing across the board of a roster of usually 10 plus different characters, or really just the main 3 go-tos in Smash Bros for you. No matter what the genre, game controls are usually the bane of remembering a title after coming back to it, which usually gets worse as time goes on, which to represent this, I've created a time scale of just the overall control scheme forgetfulness, to which the first tier of this time scale is usually like a few days to 2 weeks of taking a break from a title, to which when you come back to the game, it's basically like seeing a good friend after a short break from each other. You guys might have a little catching up to do to get back on the same page, but overall the friendship is still there, and after a few days it's going to be like nothing happened. Then in the second tier of taking a break from a game for 2 weeks to maybe like 3 months or so is kind of like riding a bike as an adult if you haven't since you were maybe a smaller child. Your balance is all over the fucking place, but the core concept is still there intact somewhere deep in your brain, and after a few days of, getting to ride that bike and regaining your balance, you'll go back to just feeling like it's second nature. And then there's the last tier of, I'd say, 3 months or more, to which when you return to the game at that point, it's basically like finding a nostalgic theme from your childhood in your basement, which you'll find yourself having a lot of, oh yeah, and I forgot about that ass moments, basically reliving a lost memory from the ground up. But outside of remembering all the insane button mappings that might come with the title, another factor of just pain when it comes to returning to a game after an extensive break is just remembering all of the key story elements that might be hard to keep up with after, coming back to a title, which might not be at the same extent as control schemes, but still worth mentioning. Because thanks to the internet now, you don't even have to own a game to understand it better than someone that actually played the title, because almost every game out there has its own fandom wiki page that lists all the lore that the game has to offer. all the online communities that surround these games, or if you're anything like me, just watching all the retrospective videos on all these old games that are on YouTube. But even through all of that, I think it still remains that most narrative-based games are at their best when they have your full attention and no other distraction of maybe playing another game at that current time from start to finish, since you'll likely pick up on more smaller details that the game is trying to throw at you. Because games are taking on a much more cinematic and capturing route that we've long had in movies, to which because of the longer experience of video games, it can be hard to really appreciate the fleshed out writing and just overall storyboarding if you gotta take a break from a game and not remember all the details of what you last played. And I mean, comparatively, TV shows have season gaps to which you have to take a break from watching the new content of that show, but when it comes to playing a story game, most gamers don't always look up a story recap before they start playing a game again. They just load their last save file on The Last of Us and pray they don't die in grounded mode. And that scenario especially sucks when you have games that have that post-game DLC content that plays off of the main story, to which then you'll probably get the best of both worlds when it comes to forgetting things in video games, to which you'll forget the control schemes and the storyline, to which then you'll just have to pretty much replay the main game over again, or at least find some sort of recap. Overall, returning to a game can really suck, and that concludes my sharing in this Gamers AA meeting. And I would ask what else you guys have to say for yourselves, but I don't care. I'm just gonna leave now. Is this the door? Is it? Okay, this one. All right. Thanks a lot, man. Thanks.